Hello and welcome to the 236th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, volunteering with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Today we have a special guest, Rory Pace. Rory is a registered dietitian and a board certified specialist in renal nutrition. She has over 25 years of experience in the field and is heavily involved in leadership and volunteering within the field. Melanie Betts, who is a dear friend as well as a student of the Blogging Accelerator program and Blog Boss Mastermind, also known as the Kidney Dietitian, connected
Mhm.
Rory and I, and it felt like it would be fun to do a podcast all about volunteering within the Academy. So today I'm going to be picking Rory's brain about all things volunteering. I'll be throwing in some of my experiences as well, but let's dive in. So, Rory, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us more about yourself and your journey of volunteering within the field?
I'd love to. Thanks for having me, Katie. I really look forward to our chat. So as you said, my experience has largely been as a renal dietitian, but I'm grateful for experience in different areas of dietetics practice through, my career journey, including acute care, home health and hospice, community nutrition, leadership within nutrition and dietetics, and more recently, sales. I'm California based, lived in California all my life. So that's a little bit about my kind of career journey in a small nutshell. But volunteering has been a really important and formative experience for me in my career. If I think back to, where that started, how did I begin? If I'm being honest, it began really with some of the examples that I had in my community and within my family as a child, from my parents who were involved in leadership and advocacy, particularly my mom. I think that was kind of a subconscious example,
Oh,
but that helped give me confidence later on as I became a professional and had opportunities to volunteer and be a part of, helping organizations accomplish something. Um, when I think back to how I got involved as a volunteer, it really started with just participating in organizations like my local dietetics district within the academy, within my affiliate, or the local group of renal dietitians under the National Kidney Foundation, and just being able to meet other professionals in person and get a feel for how organizations run, um, helped me kind of dip my toe and build some confidence in, what it meant to volunteer.
yes. I love it. And so I know I did peek at like your resume, your experience, and all these things, but what are some of the roles that you've had within volunteering in the academy?
So I started out volunteering in the academy with kind of an unusually big loop, not loop leap, at the district level. So within my, immediate geography, had been participating in just going to district meetings as a member. And somebody, as often happens for many of us, gave me that little push of an encouragement, and suggested that I run for president-elect of that district, which seemed kind of like a big crazy leap at the time. But again, as is I think the case for many of us as volunteers, somebody having confidence in me and saying, "Hey, I think you should consider this. Hey, I think you should try this," was enough for me to take that leap and give it a shot. And so that kind of began my experience of volunteering within the academy. Having served as president at the district level, qualified me to run for delegate representing the California affiliate. And so that again was a big leap, kind of branching from the state level to the national level, but was really, really um, an impactful experience and a significant one in my, I think, professional development and growth, as well as increasing my understanding of the academy as an organization and the subunits within it and how they work to support members. Um, More recently, I've served on the Council on Future Practice, also serving as chair of that group. Been involved with some task forces within the House of Delegates and currently serving with CDR on the workforce capacity task force, looking at how we can be prepared for a successful future. So lots of different experiences, but all of them have really helped me to understand the bigger picture of both the academy and also the needs of our profession. And so I really, continue to look for opportunities to serve and to use, all of that perspective, but also the skills that I've gained to help lead our organization and our profession forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I was almost thinking as we're talking, I'm like, oh, there's probably people who are listening who don't know a ton about the academy. Maybe they were
Mm,
members as a student, but they might not be members now. So I'm just going to give a quick 100-foot overview of the academy for those who might be like, what are these terms they're talking about? So we have the big Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and that is like over, the whole United States. And then there are affiliates, and those are the individual state groups. So here in Oregon, we have the Oregon Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. For Rory, she's a member of the California Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So those are, when we're talking about affiliates, we're talking about the state level. Within each state, there's districts. Think of that as your local chapter of the academy. Depending on where you live, I live in Southern Oregon. We do not have a district. There's one in Portland. I imagine, well, actually, I know that California has multiple districts. So as we're throwing around those terms, academies, big academy, affiliates are state, districts are local, and there's all these other layers. There's the dietetic practice groups, the DPGs, which are national. There's the House of Delegates, where there's representatives from all the different groups, the DPGs and the affiliates. But it's really this complex web. In a nutshell, it is the organization that represents dietitian and nutrition professionals. And I think everyone knows what it is, but just kind of explaining some of those nuances of language, I think
yeah.
might be helpful.
Definitely. Thanks for taking a pause to do that because it is such a big organization and we talk a lot of terms. But I think that's really helpful. And I have to give a shout out, not didn't mean to neglect one of my leadership experiences was which is with the DPG level,
Hmm.
the renal dietitians
Yep.
DPG recently served as chair there and continue to support that group as a marketing communications chair. So that's one of the fun things about volunteering is you can try different things and gain different skills and anyway, but also enjoying serving the California Academy, that affiliate level, supporting all of our district leaders
Yeah.
in a new role. So lots of different opportunities and hats to wear.
Oh yeah, and I know my next question, we're going to dive into some of the benefits, but I'll just kind of share really quickly with our listeners who I don't think I talk a ton about my volunteer experience. I think my listeners know I volunteer a lot. I often say I have a volunteer problem because for many years I would hold like three or four volunteer roles at the same time, which is not uncommon for people deep in the volunteer world. But I was looking at my resume, and in the last 15 years of being a dietitian, or I've been a dietitian a little longer, but in the last 15 years, I've had 21 different roles within the state of
Amazing.
Oregon, within the Healthy Aging Dietetic Practice Group, and also within the Commission on Dietetic Registration, and a little bit in the academy, big academy itself. But I was, looking at my CV, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done a lot of things, but it's so fun. And I know we're going to talk about benefits, but I've been able to connect with and have so many friends across the country through volunteering. I'm thinking of Melanie because I know before we were chatting, you met Melanie Betts, the kidney dietitian, through volunteer work in the renal DPG. I met Melanie through the healthy aging DPG, and it's just this whole web, and I absolutely love it. But let's dive into what are some of the benefits of volunteering?
Well, I'm sure the two of us could talk for hours about all the things that we think are benefits and what we've gained. Um, and that's kind of the fun thing is that there's something to be gained no matter what your professional goals are, what your interests are, your skills are. I think off the top of my head, first and foremost, as you mentioned, Katie, it's an opportunity for networking. Certainly, if you're talking about getting involved in your local level, it's an opportunity to network right within your community geographically. Um, or perhaps within a specialty area of practice like renal nutrition or gerontological nutrition or any of the many, practice area groups or member area groups. But beyond networking, so I think networking is meeting people and making connections, but part of what happens in that process that I think is really important for us as professionals is mentorship.
Mhm.
And, we may not always think about mentorship very overtly, but it's something we all benefit from or should benefit from. And so, as we are newer professionals, or perhaps we're, in a newer area of volunteering, a different level of organization under the academy umbrella, for example, lots to learn. I've also enjoyed, as I've become a more experienced professional, um, kind of what we might call reverse mentorship, learning from others who are in a different place in their careers and know completely different things than I know, or have skills that are very different than mine. And mentorship is one of those things that, has been shown to um, help people advance in their careers, to, get promoted, earn higher salaries. And I think it's just very fulfilling.
Mhm.
And it definitely is sort of a higher level then of networking, really connecting with people in a mentorship type relationship. Um, Beyond that, I think volunteering does two important things. It allows us to use the skills that we have that, are beyond just our whatever our core skills are for our day jobs, whether that be clinical skills or, administrative skills or um, whatever. We know nutrition dietetics is a super broad profession, inclusive
Mhm.
of a lot of different skill sets. Um, but, many dietitians are second career dietitians who may have skills in communications or marketing or finance or, you know, art. Who knows? So volunteering in organizations, organizations need some of those different skill sets. So it's definitely an opportunity to say, I have this ability, I have this experience. How can I use that to benefit this group that I'm connected with? It's also an opportunity to learn new skills. And this is one of the things I think is really important.
Mhm.
Um, Certainly for earlier career professionals, but really for all of us, if we want to, potentially advance into different types of roles, or even, for those of us like myself who just have that growth mindset and love to learn. I think for me, being a volunteer, I've gotten to get experience with stuff that I wouldn't have, been exposed to as, a clinical dietitian, like strategic planning, like budgeting, marketing, even just planning and running a meeting is a super important skill, that maybe sounds like it's just something you do and, doesn't take much skill, but, to do that effectively does take some thought and some skill and some practice. And so those are all examples of skills you can gain and acquire through volunteer work that are totally transferable to jobs and typically towards, to more advanced jobs, leadership type roles. And so I think that's super important. And it's what is often very challenging, I think, for volunteers because it's all new. But it's sort of an opportunity to learn those skills where you've got a safety net and you've got, a team to work with and who are all kind of learning that together. Um, I would also add, leadership and volunteering and advocacy, all of those things are part of the standards of practice and standards of professional performance for dietitians. And those documents are often used to build career ladders in organizations. And so, getting involved, volunteering helps you develop some of those competencies that then may be, part of being able to advance in your organization if you have that kind of career ladder.
Yeah. Yes. And one thing I was thinking, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying here. It's fulfilling, all the skills that you gain. But what I think is so cool about volunteering is the skills that you learn. And you were talking about like strategic planning, budgeting, marketing, all of these things, leadership. people who listen to this podcast, it's dietitian side hustle. They're looking to do something on the side, start a business, be an entrepreneur. And I loved how you were talking about all the skills of leadership and volunteering are transferable to a job, but they're also transferable to your side hustle, to entrepreneurship. I think of my own
100%.
journey as well, I was kind of like an entrepreneur in my job. I worked at the VA for 13 years and I moved up the pay scale and in leadership real fast. And I will say, I credit that to my volunteering in the academy. And even as I started a side hustle, left my job 3 years ago and became a full hustler, I look back on my journey. And so much of what I've been able to do is because of the skill set and the tools that I gained through volunteering within the academy. And I sometimes hear people say, oh, why would I volunteer? That's working for free. I want to get paid my worth. But I look back and I'm like, I was paid so significantly, maybe not in dollars immediately, but I was paid in experiences, in skills, and as a business owner in things that now make me a lot of money. So it's a different perspective. And I want people who are listening who are side hustlers to really understand the value and the benefit of getting these skills and the mentoring. So it's like you're giving back to the field, you are helping other members, and depending on what roles you have, it's like helping the country as a whole. It's really cool what the academy can do. But then you're also getting those skills for yourself for other career things you might have. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I was thinking about volunteerism in the context of side hustle, and it made me realize, I think by and large, like volunteering has been my side hustle, which maybe, is a different way to look at it, but I totally agree. I never really saw myself as an entrepreneur until, recently, maybe the last 5 years, where, I did, using my experience, my skills gained through various volunteer experiences, um, did make a successful proposal to establish, launch, and operate a subsidiary company of my former employer. And, I really do credit volunteer experiences similarly to what you shared to
Yeah.
give me, to help me be successful in that.
Yeah, I even think of students in the programs that I teach now as a full-time entrepreneur, and some of my students who are the most successful actually have backgrounds volunteering in the academy. Melanie Betts, the
Mm.
kidney dietitian, big volunteer in the academy. Liz Jalkowitz, the dietitian editor, big volunteer in the academy. So I think that there really is something to learn and gain from volunteering. There's so many benefits. I mentioned before, just the friends that I have across the country. Such a blessing. I often talk on this podcast about the value of being in the right rooms with the right people, to be in the rooms with the change makers, the people who are so excited and motivated. And one of the things I love about volunteering is that I'm in the room with people who are there because they want to be. They're so passionate about making a difference versus maybe complaining or, having a different mindset. So being in the right rooms is so valuable. And one tangible thing I will say, and this was something I really enjoyed early on as a volunteer, when I first became a dietitian, I think as many people experience, we get this job in the real world and we're like, oh, I maybe don't make a ton of money. I want to go to things like Fancy. I want to go to these in-person events, but I can't afford to go. As a volunteer, I was actually able to, get some compensation for going to the Food Nutrition Conference and Expo, meeting all these amazing volunteers in person and being able to do all the stuff in person. So I just remember when I was a younger dietitian, I thought of like, okay, this is free work, but when I look at how much it would cost me for all this travel and all this experience and all these skills, I'm like, this is fabulous. So there are lots of benefits from helping people, making an impact, being able to have experiences, building your resume. We can go on and on, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So how can our listeners get more involved in the field?
For better or for worse, there's always an abundance of opportunities, I think. And I say that because, I feel like we're all pulled in multiple directions these days. And so, there are a lot of formal leadership positions that are looking for candidates all the time. But even beyond those higher level, elected kind of positions, there are always opportunities. And I would suggest, you know, looking broadly and perhaps starting like I did by just joining groups, participating, seeing what they're all about, whether that's, academy groups like DPGs or MIGs, or more local affiliate related groups that let you actually go in person and, meet other professionals or students. Um, to just kind of get a feel for things because I think it's much more comfortable and within reach to volunteer once you've already got some familiarity with some of the people involved and understanding what the goals are of that particular group. Um, some of the districts in California have been holding open board meetings now and then, in addition to their member focus meetings, which has been an awesome idea. And that gives them an opportunity to, share with members what it looks like to be on the board, to be a volunteer. So it doesn't seem so, unfamiliar and scary and, like intense. Um, so those might be things to look for. I think other things to look for that I've definitely seen a focus in the academy in the last few years is what we might call micro volunteering opportunities. Looking for smaller bites that are maybe within your bandwidth, within your, time frame for volunteering, as well as within your interest, kind of going back to, benefits of volunteering, like thinking about what skills you have or what skills you want to gain through your volunteering, which are completely different, approaches to finding a volunteer opportunity. But I think I would also say, in response to this question, for leaders who might be listening and those who, are setting the priorities and the directions for groups within the academy, you know, be thoughtful about how to engage volunteers, whether they're new volunteers or experienced volunteers. Think about those micro volunteering opportunities that you can create, a seat on a committee, a short-term project. Be thoughtful about clearly communicating what the time constraints are. Also be thoughtful about, what barriers there might be to participation, beyond just time commitment. Um, we are going to be the most successful as a profession if we are able to engage a diverse group of volunteers, and that means reducing barriers to participation. So avoiding, you know, out-of-pocket expenses to the degree that we can to be part of, a board, for example. Um, so lots of ways to look at it, I think. The other thing I would just say is don't feel like you're an imposter if you want to get involved, even if you're
Yes.
a student, if you're an early career professional, um, if you're a later career professional, you have something to give and you will be welcomed with open arms. I can almost guarantee you, because of that desire to be involved.
Yes, I love that. And I really just want to reiterate, like, don't have that imposter syndrome. These organizations, they need volunteers to function. They are volunteer run groups and they need people's input. I think back to my first volunteer role. I became a dietitian in 2008 and I started my first volunteer role in 2010. So about a year into being a dietitian, that's when I started the process of running for the nominating chair elect of the Healthy Aging Dietetic Practice Group. And I remember being like so terrified. I'm like, I'm just this baby dietitian. Who do I think I am? But then I got the position. And then when I got in, I realized people want young voices. They want every voice. And so really from there, I just continued. I never stopped volunteering after that. But they definitely, these groups need people. It's really important to have all kinds of different voices. And I even think of, being someone who's been on many boards. If you're a member, even just emailing saying, hey, I'd love to get involved. I'd love to volunteer. I can almost guarantee you they will find a place for you to help out because like I can almost guarantee you. So I love that idea of like micro volunteering. It doesn't just have to be like, I'm going to run for president. It could be all of these different levels. And you might just want to dabble and get your toe wet with something that maybe feels like maybe I just want to be the secretary. I just want to be back there taking some notes, observing, and then dive deeper. But um, awesome. Okay, so my next question for you is what advice do you have for listeners who might feel frustrated with the academy? They might be listening like, okay, we hear you saying, okay, volunteering in the academy, it's so great, there's benefits, but I feel kind of frustrated with the academy. I might not even be a member. What do you have to say to those listeners?
Yeah, I think I want to start by saying that's fair. You totally have a right to feel that way. Organizational governance is hard,
Mhm.
and it's not going to always be all things to all people. Um, I personally, I believe in being the change that I want to see, which is why I'm willing to put my time and my energy, as well as my skills and experience into, helping the academy to be what I want it to be. Um, I fully acknowledge not everybody is going to be able to do that or even to, connect with that strategy or that approach. Um, what I would say, I think to people who are feeling, frustrated or skeptical, if, getting involved is not the right way, for you to change that path, reach out, ask questions, lead with curiosity and seek to understand more about what those issues are that are causing you to be frustrated. Is it sponsorship? Is it, pay? Is it, advocacy, payment, um, policy, you name it. I think in our information age, we unfortunately have a lot of misinformation. We're just bombarded with all kinds of information that may or may not really tell us the full true story of any one issue that we're, you know, thinking about or focused on. Um, so I think that is one strategy. You can certainly reach out to academy leaders at any level. You can reach out to academy staff. You can reach out to Commission on Dietetic Registration staff who or elected representatives in CDR, the commissioners, because they represent all credentialed
Mhm.
practitioners. Whereas, technically the academy represents its members, and kind of indirectly represents all practitioners. Um, Another important channel, I think, for asking questions and bringing your concerns or your thoughts forward is through your delegate. So, if you are a member, you have a delegate at least one delegate in your state affiliate. If you're a DPG member, you have a delegate in your DPG. I know certainly when there have been kind of critical issues of importance to me, I have reached out to all of the delegates of the group, all of the groups that I, am a part of, to share my feedback or my perspective. And that's actually really important because that is what the delegates need to be able to do their jobs, is to hear from their constituents and take that back then to the national level, to the House of Delegates, to inform the discussions that happen there, which then shape kind of direction and policy and anything from, you know, education and credentialing standards or position statements on specific issues related to nutrition and food. And, one of my interesting experiences as a delegate was meeting the CDR delegate. So, knowing there is somebody, again, who represents all credentialed practitioners, to bring that voice into those discussions. Um, so, as a leader, I can't do my job well if I don't really understand what's important to members and to, credentialed practitioners. And so that's where I would really just suggest, if you've got, something that's bugging you, something that's frustrating you, reach out, share those thoughts, start a conversation so that leaders can advance, those concerns, hopefully in a way that's productive, rather than just, finding maybe it sounds bad to say echo chamber, but, a forum where it just frustrations are spun that doesn't actually result in any change or action. So I don't know. I'm curious if you have thoughts as well on how to guide.
Yes. No, no, I love that. I love everything that you said there, Rory. And I think that one thing that I really want to encourage people, if you feel frustrated, this is opportunity to make the change. The Academy, even though technically it represents its members to the public, it does represent all dietitians. And
Mhm.
so we can be those change makers and make a difference and make more of a difference inside the system than outside. So I know I'm an Academy member. I still am a volunteer. I'm the business development director for Oregon Academy, and I will always be an Academy member. That is just something that's really ingrained in me. But I like just that idea of being the change maker, making a difference. And one thing, actually, as you were talking, I was thinking about this because, again, kind of to explain some nuances that I don't think everyone understands. We have the big academy, right? Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. But then we have the Commission on Dietetic Registration. Those are technically two organizations. They are linked, but they are separate. The Commission on Dietetic Registrations, if you are a dietitian or an NDTR, you are connected to CDR. You pay your dues every year. And so CDR, they have their own volunteer opportunities. I've been on the CDR board myself, and that is for all dietitians. Then you have the academy, which is for people who pay their annual dues to be members. But there's other groups too. There's even like the foundation, which is the not-for-profit arm of the academy that's really focused on like scholarships and awards and all kinds of cool stuff. So there's lots of ways to get involved, lots of ways to make a difference, lots of ways to just again get all the things that fill us, but then also make this impact externally. So thank you for having that discussion. Okay,
Definitely.
so there are quite a few students who listen to the podcast, and I think sometimes students think, oh, like, oh, volunteering's not for me. But what advice would you have for students who are listening?
I love to see students volunteering, and I've been really fortunate to, work and volunteer for groups that regularly have student engagement and participation. I think often students get involved with volunteering because it's a requirement of the program they're in at
Yeah.
whatever stage of their education they're in. But again, I think that little nudge helps them over that barrier maybe of, imposter syndrome or, feeling intimidated of being, just a student working with professionals. But getting involved as a student is a great time first to become a member of the academy and at least to get involved with whatever local group, is in your area within the academy. Having worked with the local districts in California this year, those groups are so eager to have student perspective. They really are just clamoring for that. As you shared, Katie, having diverse representation, in all definitions of diversity, including, stage of education and training is so important to, help us develop strategies and help us really deliver value to members. So students just know that your perspective, where you are in your educational journey, is so valued and desired. I see in our districts in California, most of them have created specific roles for students as
Yep.
student liaisons to help formalize that. I see one of the other like awesome ways I see students getting involved is in things like social media for groups using their skills that maybe some of us more seasoned volunteers, uh, you know, aren't as adept at. So that's just one example. But I would really encourage that. Also, if you're really ambitious as a student, keep an eye out or check out some of the academy committees have roles for students. House of Delegates in the past has had roles for students as note takers. Um, so again, really setting aside that spot to bring in that student perspective and viewpoint. We didn't really talk a lot about academy committees, but those are other, organizations under the academy umbrella that focus on specific things like quality or research or future practice was what I was a part of. There are a number of them.
Yeah.
Again, ways to bring your skills, whether you're student or professional. to help further the work of the academy. And I think it goes without saying, hopefully at this point, but students getting involved as a volunteer is an awesome way to build your network,
Hmm.
from the earliest stage of your career. And I could almost guarantee you, any student who's ever volunteered probably would say that that helped them to, if not get a job, at least to make connections that help them make progress towards a job as they, graduated and became credentialed.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a good resume builder for getting, internships, maybe grad school, a job, or even as you get in the job, promotion at the job. We didn't even
Mhm.
talk about those benefits. But um, as Rory was sharing, there are all kinds of different student positions in all the different groups. I know within healthy aging, we had created a student position, which I loved. That was really fun. One of my years, I got to work with the student directly. Other opportunities, as we were talking, you could also be a student volunteer at FNCE, the Food Nutrition Conference and
Yeah.
Expo. There are student opportunities. I had a lot of fun this last FNCE talking to students, and what they were doing is they were standing in different hotels directing people on where to go. So it wasn't like a hard gig, but it was a fun gig because they, boots on the ground, got to meet, got to network, and then also got some compensation to help them be at that event. So if you're a student listening, volunteering is for you too, and I promise it will serve you as you move forward in your career. Awesome. So
Definitely.
we've talked a lot about volunteering. We're kind of at the end, getting ready to wrap things up. I hope that this was helpful for our listeners just to hear about some of the benefits of volunteering, ways they can get involved, and just really how to move forward with volunteering. So, for people who might want to continue to connect with you, Rory, can you let people know where they can find you online?
Absolutely. I would love to connect with anybody who's interested. Probably the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Um, can find me there by my name, Rory Pace. Um, just love to learn from others as well. So I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. So, go find Rory on LinkedIn. And anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
Uh, it's been a delight chatting with you, Katie. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our shared passion for volunteering. And I hope that this has been helpful discussion for others who, maybe aren't sure what volunteering is all about, or, a little reserved and hesitant to get involved. But I would really just encourage everybody to consider at least the paths that Katie and I have both followed. Um, you know, think about your skills, think about what things you want to learn, and you know, find the right opportunity and jump in and give it a go. I certainly am grateful for my volunteer experiences that have, helped me to continue to build my skills. And I look forward to continuing to use my skills, my ability, my vision to help lead the academy and our profession forward.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Rory. I do want to give a shout out to
Thanks,
the
Katie.
Academy elections that are coming up February 1st through February 15th. So if you are an Academy member, be sure to vote. There's also elections for CDR, all the different DPGs you might be a part of. So this is really the highlight and opportunity where you can go in and see all of these amazing humans who are volunteering to make our profession better. So be sure to vote. It's a small window, but it's coming up soon. So thanks so much, Rory.
Thanks, Katie.